Hi, good morning. I'm going to make a video. I don't know how long it's going to last. I'll try and keep it under 20 minutes. It's about the saying that I say all the time. It's a personal mantra that I've adopted. Mantras can be very pretty. They can be parts of hymns or parts of songs. And if you speak or sing Sanskrit, great. Develop a mantra in Sanskrit. I'm Scottish, Swedish, French, and English with a little fight in Irish. And all I've got to say is I use English because it's really my first primary language, even though I speak three other languages fluently. Prostite, ja ne razговаривал по-русски или украински, американски, da. And I speak German. Mein Name ist David. Ich bin Chefkoch Unbezit in der Bäckerei Hermosa Pie. Nett dich kennengelernt zu haben. And I speak Spanish, and then I'm working on my French. So when we think about language in the way that everybody has a special language or different language, there are differences primarily in consonants, vowels, verbs, and adjectives and the way that they're used. So we won't get into accent grave or umlauts or exclamation points because it isn't the type of mind control using your words, controlling your thoughts, that is affected by adjectives and verbs as much as it is the solid foundation of the word that is the descriptor of what you're speaking or the sentence that you want to construct. When you use words like hate or you use words like love, these are both very powerful words. They carry a resonance that is a vibration, a vibratory frequency. Love and hate. And it's the way that you say them and the way that you allow those words to exist within your daily vocabulary that change the reality around you, because the energy that your body produces, the energy that your soul produces, and the energy that your mind produces are an enigmatic flow of a delicate electromagnetic field and an electric charge. And there's also the divine spirit entity energy that we get from the divine creator when we are loving, giving, caring, and forgiving people. Human beings need to be reminded to be gentle, and to be gentle in their repose, the way that they speak to one another, and to be considerate. And being considerate and gentle are more difficult than being nasty and being hot-headed. And it takes a lot more muscle in your face, your maxillofacial musculature. There's something like some 700 or 270 muscles that are used to frown and to scowl and to show a face of anger. However, it's a lot less work to smile. So, we may not always feel like smiling. Okay, this isn't one of those kumbaya videos where I sit here and tell you to suck it up and just smile. There's a time for bullshit, and there's a time for those words as well. Thoughts are things is a very old concept. There was a man who lived some 13,000 years ago, and his name was Q. His given name was Confuzi. Bastardized later in the 14th century with the use of Latin into Confucius. And Confucius was a very, very wise human being who understood the gentle balance of the nature of humanity and the nature of the planet. And he was a philosopher that traveled all over China, Mongolia, Tibet, and exchanged information and shared ancient wisdom with everyone he encountered, and he became famous for being one of the kindest people alive. Confucius said also that thoughts are things, knowing that this was not his phrase that he's coined, but understanding the concept behind thoughts being things. I have a very dear friend. We'll use him as an example. I love him. He's like a brother, and he's the brother I should have had instead of my poor sad brother who's passed on. God bless him. But my friend talks about subjects that he gets off of social media, and he realizes that it's a script. He realizes that almost everything on social media is some form of control mechanism in the form of a social script that's designed to make you react. He's a very spiritual person, and he is in contact with his higher self. He's in contact with his spirit guides, and he's in contact with the divine creator. He's a successful guy and a successful dad, and his kids love him to death. And I do too. He's just a special soul. But it's interesting. This friend of mine, who is such a special soul, is someone who I've cared to share thoughts or things with for almost as long as I've known him. And we've discussed the concept that the words that we use empower us, and we've discussed the concept that the words that we speak harmonize with the energy of the thought moment. Your energy levels can go up and down, or they'll stay the same, or we can go oop, and then we sleep, and we sleep all night. His energy levels have been up and down because he's been going through some physicality issues. He's doing some healing. He's a very rough, tough guy, and he does a lot of crazy, wild shit. I mean, he flies, he does paragliding and motorbike riding and all this other amazing shit. But I talk to him about thoughts or things, and he understands, and I know he listens, because telling you guys, all of my friends out there, and all my friends here in Hermosa and in Los Angeles, they know that they're just going to hear, hey, you know, this David, he's going to start talking about thoughts or things. And it's a mantra that I use. It's my inherited mantra. And it's not easy to identify myself as far as being this or that, because I'm so many things, and I'm always interested in learning something new. But thoughts or things is a very concrete wisdom from the very ancient times that solidifies more than the message and meaning of my personal life. It's the lesson that I go through my entire life trying to explain to people, that the very thoughts that you keep on a regular basis can empower you for the rest of your life, starting right now. Why my friend still gets excited about scripted paradigm stuff, I'll never know. Because he goes to this place where his higher thinking takes over, and he understands the concept of thoughts or things, and he lives within that moment, but he's unable somehow to continue in the understanding where you tape loop it in the back of your mind, so you realize that we should always be mindful of our thoughts. Our thoughts should be of care and love and forgiveness, but not just those human attributes. Our thoughts should be about other people and how to help them. Our thoughts should be nice. We should be thinking about wonderful things. You know, when we use our brain and we use our identity as a human being to commit to creating beautiful things, whether you're an artist or a musician or a songwriter or a candlestick maker or a carpenter, when you commit to those things, that in a sense is thoughts or things. But when you speak a word, when you repeat something that is not a word that's come from the designation of your soul that you've created or you're expressing, because it's connected to your higher spirituality and the need for you to transfer your higher spirituality understandings to your friends, and then you can learn about their higher spirituality as well. Nobody has any of the answers. We can all try as hard as we can to ground ourselves and to make sure that we're in touch with Mother Earth, our needs to survive, and the society that's been designed around us that we unadmittedly or unwittingly help support and design. So my friend, who I love very much, can have the most amazing ideas and tell me about his amazing revelations, and he's just such a clever, beautiful soul. But then he falls from grace, you know, he sort of goes back to his old self and then starts getting physically upset and emotionally upset about given social issues. And social issues will occur. We're in a society. It's just like the words climate change. Well, it's a climate and it's subject to change. You know, social issues. Yeah, every society has issues. So why my wonderful spiritual friend decides to constantly combat his higher self by observing these things on the media. So when you think of a word, think about how that word makes you feel, and if that's a word that's wisely chosen, a word that represents your soul. Because if we're going to have higher relationships with people and have a deeper understanding about communicating with human beings so that we can all be compassionate and helpful for one another, there's really no other way to live. It takes a lot of energy at first to change the way that you use the words of your language. When you speak a word, you create energy. You offer energy in the vibration that you've given up to share that word. So you're not just sharing a word and all of the concepts and ideas that go behind that word. You're sharing a frequency, a vibratory feeling, and a wave. And that wave that comes off of you according to the words that you use. Because indeed, the words that you use are the same assemblage that exist in your interior mind, the deepest recesses of your subconscious, and certainly your cognitive mind, whether you're working with associates in a university situation or whether you're working with associates in a corporation or in a mechanic's shed or in a field. So when you use words, remember that the words that you use also program you. They set you up. So if you use a word over and over again, it's that much easier to say that one phrase over and over again. And it's almost like every system and everything that occurs in our society and everything that happens in history has its own nomenclature that supports itself. Same thing could be said with a religion. Take Catholicism. You know, Domini Vobiscum, et Spiritus Tui. They use Latin, it has connotation, and then they do all the other weird things that they do. And, you know, I've known really good Catholics that aren't involved with, like, satanic rituals and pedophile shit. And they're beautiful, wonderful people and very, very charitable. And, you know, they do it in the name of Catholicism. So religions, if they're helpful and you're actually going somewhere to help somebody improve their life, then terrific. Religions are great. Theology and philosophies are equally great. When I think about Confucius or Buddha, who also said thoughts were things, I'm reminded of Nicomachean Ethics, those thoughts about Aristotle's higher gifts that we can give as citizens to the city or the town with which we live. Nicomachean Ethics were formed right around the same time. We went from hunter-gatherer in smaller tribes to almost overnight highly cultivated and cultured agrarian and city-building species. Very curious about this genetic leap that we've taken. Aristotle understood that thoughts were things, and when he developed Nicomachean Ethics, he wrote a large treatise about how the thoughts that you use and the words that you use that are overheard by other people have a direct effect on the health of the city as a whole. This is pre-ego. This is pre-id. Those things were never identified fully or understood or researched by human beings until the 18th century, late 18th century. One of the greatest books ever written about the human id was by Dr. Georg Grodek, and that's an amazing book, and he wrote it with Dr. Sidney Girard in 1930 or 1940. No, perhaps a little bit later, 1949, 1955. They're very modern philosophers, and the book's called The Transparent Self. So if you find a copy of it, it's a great way to identify with your ego. It's a great way to identify with your deep feelings. Now, anger is a good feeling to have because we all know that there's some terrible bullshit going on right now. by some really terrible people. And they need to be held accountable. We need to put their feet on the fire and put these people in jail. The people that are controlling world funds, people that are controlling poverty and success, which corporations will succeed, which ones will fail. It's part of that egoistic power struggle that's been going on for thousands of years, which has nothing to do with our shared destiny as a species, other than it controlling the society in which our shared destiny should live within. That's why it's so hard for us to find ourselves, to get centered, and to start thinking more about the words that we use. Unfortunately, the term thoughts are things has also been turned into money-making manifestos, and I've found that there's a couple of books that are available on the internet with that title. And of course, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that work the stock market, that work investment portfolios. They're going to read that book and go, oh wow, this is great, I can think myself into wealth. So all of the best information that comes from our past, including the advice from your grandparents and the advice that you got from your parents, has always had an opportunity to be twisted around to something other than it was originally intended. So let's think about intent. Let's think about how we can support our higher intent. You know, if somebody comes up to you and smiles and you don't know this person, more likely than not, you're going to think, why is this person smiling at me? Because you've been trained to. And when was the last time you just met a happy person that in passing looked at you and smiled because they were happy? Right? Well, why don't you just go, oh, that person smiled at me because they're happy, and I'm glad they're happy. It makes me happy. Now I'm going to smile at somebody and they're going to go, why is that guy smiling at me? So we need to be more kind and polite. So if you don't feel like opening the doors for somebody and being chewed out for being a misogynist, then just smile instead. And then while you're smiling, think about the thoughts that you keep and how those thoughts empower your life. Because it's a lot easier to think kind, good thoughts and be a higher conscious person, and understanding that you get a lot further in life with honey than you do vinegar. And I think that's the best way of putting it. So let's be mindful of our thoughts. See, we've gone to 17 minutes. That's long enough. It'll be 18 minutes by the time I get done saying goodbye. Goodbye. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day.